every life when the world has tried to tell you who you are, and you must decide whether you will believe it. Confidence is not something you are born holding in your hands. It is something you earn in the quiet rooms of your soul after doubt has spoken and fear has had its say. It is built when you rise after being dismissed, when you speak though your voice trembles, when you look in the mirror and choose compassion over criticism. Confidence transforms the way you walk into rooms, the way you carry your name, and the way you claim your place in this life. And once you discover it, truly discover it, you no longer ask for permission to shine, you simply do. Confidence is the quiet decision to believe yourself when every echo around you suggests otherwise. It is not born in applause or praise. It is born in solitude when you sit with your doubts and refuse to let them name you. It begins the moment you choose to trust the truth living inside you over the fear knocking at your door. This decision is soft, almost invisible, yet it carries the weight of transformation. It is the moment you stop asking the world who you should be and start listening to who you already are. There will be days when doubt speaks loudly, dressed in the voices of past failures, old wounds, and borrowed opinions. Doubt will remind you of times you fell short and moments you wish you could rewrite. But confidence does not argue with doubt, it outgrows it. Confidence whispers, I have survived before, and I will rise again. It is the courage to stand still in your worth, even when your hands are shaking, even when certainty feels far away. Believing yourself does not mean you never fear. It means fear no longer gets the final word. Confidence teaches you to walk forward while uncertainty trails behind you like a shadow that cannot touch your light. Each small act of self-belief strengthens your spirit. Each time you honor your intuition, your confidence deepens its roots. Slowly, quietly, you become someone who trusts their own becoming. When you believe yourself, your posture changes, not just in body, but in soul. You begin to speak with clarity, not because you are loud, but because you are sure. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You learn that your presence is not a burden, it is a gift. Confidence allows you to take up space without apology and to stand in your truth without explanation. This belief reshapes how you face the world. Opportunities no longer feel like accidents meant for someone else. You begin to recognize that you belong in the rooms you once feared entering. You stop waiting for validation to arrive and realize that self-trust is the only permission you ever needed. Confidence turns hesitation into action and dreams into decisions. Over time, believing yourself becomes a habit, then a lifestyle. You forgive yourself faster, rise stronger, and move forward wiser. You understand that confidence is not perfection, it is persistence. It is choosing yourself again and again, even on days when you feel unfinished. And in that choice, your life begins to change. Not all at once, but deeply, steadily, and forever. Self-belief has a way of touching the places where life has hurt you the most and saying, gently but firmly, you are still here. Wounds arrive uninvited, cutting through our plans and our pride, leaving us questioning our worth and our direction. In those moments, pain tries to convince us that we are broken beyond repair. But self-belief steps in not to erase the pain, but to reinterpret it. It reminds you that the fact you are standing, breathing, and hoping at all is already evidence of strength. There is wisdom hidden inside every scar, waiting for you to claim it. When you believe in yourself, you stop seeing your wounds as shameful secrets and start recognizing them as chapters of survival. You realize that the nights you cried taught you empathy, that the losses you endured taught you resilience, and that the disappointments you faced sharpened your discernment. What once weakened your knees now strengthens your backbone. Self-belief gives you the courage to look back without bitterness and forward without fear. Pain has a way of reshaping us, but self-belief decides how that reshaping happens. Without belief, wounds harden into bitterness and walls. With belief, they soften into understanding and depth. You begin to trust that nothing you have endured was wasted. Even the moments that felt unbearable were preparing you to carry more compassion, more clarity, and more courage. Your wounds become teachers, not jailers. As you grow into this belief, you stop measuring your life by what hurt you and start honoring what healed you. You learn to sit with your story instead of running from it. You no longer rush to hide your scars, you carry them with dignity. Self-belief transforms survival into insight. It allows you to say, "This hurt me, but it did not end me." And in that truth, you reclaim your power. With time, you notice a quiet transformation. Situations that once intimidated you no longer have the same hold. You trust your ability to endure, to adapt, and to rise. You know now that even if you fall again, you will not fall apart. Self-belief has taught you that resilience lives inside you, not outside you, and that knowledge becomes unshakable. Eventually, your wounds stop speaking in the language of pain and start speaking in the language of wisdom. You move through the world with a deeper understanding of yourself and others. You listen more, judge less, and stand stronger. What once hurt you becomes proof that you can survive storms and still greet the sun. This is the quiet miracle of self-belief. It turns suffering into strength and pain into purpose, shaping a life that is not defined by what broke you, but by what you became because of it. The way you see yourself enters a room before you ever speak. Long before your words are heard, your spirit has already introduced itself. If you arrive carrying doubt, the world senses hesitation. If you arrive carrying belief, the world feels it. People learn how to treat you by watching how gently or harshly you treat yourself. Confidence is a silent language, and it is always speaking on your behalf. When you honor yourself, you give others permission to do the same. This does not come from demanding respect or proving worth. It comes from an inner alignment that says, "I know who I am." Your eyes meet another's without apology. Your voice does not rush to explain its existence. You do not bend your truth to fit into small spaces. In that steadiness, people recognize boundaries without you having to draw lines in the air. Seeing yourself clearly requires unlearning many lies. You were taught to shrink, to doubt your instincts, to question your value when approval was absent. Confidence asks you to release those borrowed beliefs and replace them with truth. When you see yourself as capable, worthy, and evolving, you stop accepting what dishonors you. You no longer negotiate your dignity. The world responds not because it has suddenly changed, but because you have. Your self-perception shapes every interaction. When you believe in your worth, you listen without fear and speak without bitterness. You no longer chase validation, and because of that, validation often finds you. People feel safer around someone who is not begging to be chosen. Confidence creates a calm gravity, drawing respect without force, attention without performance. There will always be those who try to misunderstand you, but confidence keeps their opinions from becoming your prison. When you know yourself, you do not become defensive when questioned. You understand that another person's vision is limited by their own experiences. Seeing yourself clearly frees you from the burden of constant explanation. You become rooted, not reactive. As this confidence deepens, relationships begin to change. Some will fall away, unable to meet you where you now stand. Others will rise to greet you with honesty and respect. This is not loss, it is alignment. When you see yourself with clarity, you attract connections that reflect that clarity. You stop settling for less than mutual regard, less than kindness, less than truth. Over time, you realize that confidence is not about being admired. It is about being authentic. It is about standing in your own reflection and recognizing strength even in softness, courage even in vulnerability. The way you see yourself becomes a mirror held up to the world. And slowly, steadily, the world learns to see you not as you once doubted yourself to be, but as you truly are. Fear survives on hesitation. It grows louder when you doubt your direction and heavier when you question your worth. But the moment you begin to trust your own becoming, fear starts to lose its grip. It no longer stands tall in front of you. It retreats quietly, unsure of its power. Trusting yourself does not mean you know every step ahead. It means you believe that whoever you are becoming will know how to handle what comes next. When you trust your becoming, you stop demanding certainty before movement. You understand that growth does not arrive with guarantees. Confidence teaches you to move while learning, to try while trembling, to step forward even when the path is still forming beneath your feet. Fear expects you to wait, to stay frozen until perfection appears. Confidence answers by walking anyway, carrying courage like breath in your lungs. There is something powerful that happens when you stop fighting fear and start trusting yourself more than you fear the outcome. Fear begins to shrink because it is no longer being fed. You stop rehearsing worst-case scenarios and start believing in your capacity to adapt. You realize that even if things do not unfold as planned, you will not be undone. Confidence shifts your focus from what might go wrong to who you are becoming through the journey. Trusting your becoming means accepting that you are allowed to evolve. You are not required to stay loyal to old versions of yourself that were built in survival. Fear clings to the past because it is familiar. Confidence leans toward the future because it is possible. When you trust yourself, you stop letting yesterday define tomorrow. You give yourself permission to grow beyond old limitations without guilt. As confidence deepens, courage finds room to breathe. Courage does not roar. It inhales quietly and stands steady. It shows up when you speak even though your voice shakes. It shows up when you choose honesty over comfort. It shows up when you keep going after being disappointed. Confidence creates the space where courage can exist without pressure to be fearless. You begin to notice that fear no longer controls your choices. It may still appear, but it no longer decides. You learn to carry fear with you instead of letting it carry you. Confidence teaches you that bravery is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to honor your growth despite it. Each step taken in trust weakens fear's authority. Over time, trusting your becoming reshapes your inner dialogue. You speak to yourself with patience instead of punishment. You replace harsh judgment with curiosity. You allow mistakes to teach instead of define you. Fear thrives on self-criticism, but confidence softens that voice and replaces it with understanding. In that gentleness, you grow stronger. Eventually, fear becomes a reminder rather than a ruler. It reminds you that you are stepping into something meaningful. Confidence assures you that you are ready, not because you are perfect, but because you are willing. And in trusting your own becoming, you discover a quiet truth. Fear shrinks not when life becomes easier, but when you finally believe in who you are becoming. There comes a turning point when you realize you were never meant to only survive. Survival is what you do when life is heavy, when you are carrying pain, responsibilities, and unanswered prayers just to make it through the day. Survival keeps you breathing, but it does not always let you dream. Confidence is what lifts you out of that narrow space and reminds you that your life is more than endurance. It whispers that you're allowed to shape your days, not just withstand them. When confidence begins to grow, you stop waking up merely bracing yourself for what might go wrong. You start waking up with intention. You recognize that the strength that kept you alive through hardship can also be used to build something meaningful. Confidence shifts your mindset from "how do I get through this" to "what can I create from this?" That shift is small in language, but powerful in impact. It changes the way you approach your time, your energy, and your future. Survival teaches you to be alert, guarded, and cautious. Purpose invites you to be open, curious, and brave. Confidence is the bridge between the two. It allows you to lower your shoulders, unclench your spirit, and imagine a life that feels aligned rather than reactive. You stop moving only in response to pain and start moving toward possibility. The past no longer pulls you forward by force. The future begins to call you by choice. As confidence deepens, you realize that everything you survived has given you direction. The struggles sharpened your awareness. The disappointments clarified your values. The losses taught you what truly matters. What once felt like random suffering begins to form a pattern of preparation. Confidence helps you see that your endurance was never pointless. It was shaping your voice, your compassion, and your resolve. Purpose does not arrive as a grand announcement. It reveals itself quietly through the confidence to say yes to what aligns and no to what drains you. You stop pouring your energy into places that only keep you busy but leave you empty. You begin to choose actions that reflect who you are becoming. Confidence makes you intentional. It turns survival instincts into purposeful decisions. You also begin to understand that shaping your life does not mean controlling everything. It means taking responsibility for your response. Confidence gives you the strength to participate actively in your own becoming. You stop seeing yourself as someone life happens to and start seeing yourself as someone who responds with clarity and courage. Even when circumstances are difficult, your inner posture changes. You are no longer powerless. Over time, purpose gives meaning to your endurance. You stop resenting the journey that toughened you. You begin to honor it. Confidence allows you to stand in your story without bitterness, knowing that every season contributed to who you are now. Survival kept you alive, but confidence teaches you how to live. Eventually, you realize that purpose is not something you find far away from your pain. It is often born right inside it. Confidence opens your eyes to this truth. You stop running from what you endured and start using it as fuel. And in that moment, life becomes more than a test of endurance. It becomes a canvas, and you finally begin to shape it with intention, courage, and hope. There is a quiet kind of freedom that arrives when you stop apologizing for your existence. For a long time, many of us learn to soften our truth, to edit our stories, to shrink the parts of ourselves that feel too much, too loud, too different. We learn to say sorry for our opinions, our emotions, our past, our scars. But confidence begins the moment you decide that your story does not need permission to exist. It is yours, and that alone makes it worthy. Owning your story does not mean pretending it was easy or beautiful all the time. It means telling the truth without shame. It means acknowledging where you came from without allowing it to cage you. When you stop hiding the chapters that hurt, you take their power away. What was once a source of embarrassment becomes a source of understanding. Confidence grows when you realize that your story is not a weakness to conceal, but a testament to survive. There is deep strength in saying, "This is who I am, and I am still becoming." When you no longer apologize for who you are, you stop negotiating your identity. You stop twisting yourself into shapes that make others comfortable at the cost of your own peace. Confidence teaches you that belonging does not require self-erasure. You do not have to disappear to be accepted. The right spaces will meet you where you stand. As you begin to own your story, your voice changes. It becomes steadier, not because you have all the answers, but because you are no longer afraid of being seen. You speak with honesty instead of performance. You share from truth instead of fear, and in doing so, you give others permission to be honest with themselves. Confidence has a way of creating courage, not only in you, but around you. There will be moments when people misunderstand your story or try to reduce you to a single chapter. Confidence helps you resist the urge to explain yourself endlessly. You learn that clarity does not come from convincing everyone. It comes from knowing yourself. When you own your story, you stop defending it. You let it stand as it is, incomplete, complex, and real. Freedom grows when you stop carrying the weight of who you think you should have been. You forgive yourself for past choices made with limited knowledge and limited support. Confidence allows you to look back with compassion instead of condemnation. You understand that you did the best you could with what you had at the time. That understanding softens your heart and strengthens your resolve. Over time, you notice how light you feel when you no longer apologize for your presence. Your laughter becomes fuller. Your silence becomes more peaceful. You are not constantly scanning the room to see if you are too much or not enough. Confidence settles into you like home. You belong to yourself first. Owning your story sets you free because it returns your power to you. No one else gets to define you by your past, your mistakes, or your pain. You are more than what happened to you. You are who you chose to become after it. And in that ownership, confidence rises, not as arrogance, but as truth, finally spoken without fear. There is a space between who you are today and who you feel called to become, and confidence is what allows you to stand there without fear. That space can feel uncomfortable, uncertain, even lonely at times. It is filled with questions, unfinished dreams, and versions of yourself still learning how to breathe. Without confidence, that distance feels impossible. With confidence, it becomes a passage, a crossing you trust yourself to make step by step. Confidence does not rush you across this bridge. It steadies your footing. It reminds you that becoming is not a leap, but a movement. You do not wake up transformed overnight. You grow into yourself through choices, patience, and courage repeated quietly. Confidence tells you that it is okay to be unfinished, that progress matters more than perfection. It keeps you moving when doubt tries to convince you that you are not ready. Possibility lives on one side of the bridge. It is full of ideas, hopes, and unspoken potential. Power lives on the other side, where action replaces hesitation. Confidence is what turns imagining into doing. It takes what you sense within your spirit and gives it form in the world. Without confidence, possibility stays beautiful but distant. With confidence, it becomes tangible, lived, and real. As you walk this bridge, you begin to trust yourself more deeply. You learn that you do not need to have everything figured out to take the next step. Confidence teaches you to honor what you know now while remaining open to what you will learn later. You stop waiting for the perfect moment and start creating momentum. Each step forward strengthens your belief that you can handle what lies ahead. There will be moments when you look down and feel afraid of falling back into old habits, old fears, old limitations. Confidence does not deny that fear. It keeps you moving despite it. It reminds you that growth often feels like risk because it requires leaving what is familiar. You realize that staying where you are may feel safe, but it costs you the chance to become who you were meant to be. Crossing this bridge also means releasing old definitions of yourself. Confidence allows you to loosen your grip on labels that no longer fit. You are not bound to past mistakes, outdated roles, or expectations placed on you by others. You give yourself permission to evolve. In doing so, you honor the future version of yourself who is waiting for you to arrive. As confidence carries you forward, your power begins to reveal itself, not as dominance or control, but as clarity and self-trust. You make decisions with intention. You move with purpose. You stop second-guessing your worth and start investing in your growth. Power, you discover, is simply confidence put into action. Eventually, you realize that the bridge never disappears. You are always becoming, always moving toward a deeper version of yourself. Confidence continues to meet you there, reminding you that every step counts. It carries you from doubt to direction, from possibility into power. And as you walk, you understand this truth. You were never meant to stay where you started. Confidence exists so you can become who you were always meant to be.